Hey everybody, this is Raul Gonzalez.
And I'm Oscar Ibieta.
And we are Medicare Agent IQ. We are a podcast that is designed to help insurance agents, in particular Medicare agents, to be successful in Medicare. But today we kind of have like a special, kind of a slightly different spin on what we do. And it is 5 steps for a final expense insurance agent to transition to be able to also do Medicare. So
yeah, what are the steps, right? If you're out there and you're doing currently doing final expense, and you've had the conversation about Medicare, or you're considering it, or really you've been hearing about it, but you don't know what the first step is. That's what we're going to be covering today.
Yeah, and one of the big things that I'll say is, if you listen to this podcast and you already are a Medicare agent, maybe you have a friend that does final expense, feel free to send them this podcast. I think there'd be a lot of value in it, just a lot of quick things to learn, but definitely would make sense to become a Medicare agent. We know final expense agents who have transitioned over, and where initially they were just going to do this on the side, and then once they started kind of feeling those renewals, they're like, man, this is the business that I want to be in. I just kind of there's a couple of agents that I think about that transitioned over, and these agents, some may have about 1,000 people in their book of business. So when you do the math, and let's talk about what the commissions are real quick. Yeah. So someone brand new to Medicare, obviously it's a smaller commission than you get for final expense. It's $600, $601.
$601.
It's pretty. It's the national average. If you live in like New Jersey, Connecticut, there's a couple other states where it's different. I know this is national podcast. So, but the standard kind of national for most states is 601. And if someone moves plan to plan, let's say from a United Healthcare over to a Humana or vice versa, then the commission is $301.
That's correct.
And the thing is that they do prorate it. So, right, like if it's July 1st, you get half of that, you get $150. But the big part to me is what happens starting in January. What happens, Oscar?
It's the residual. You get that $301 commission is they give it to you all over again. The way it works, the easy way to word it is you get the $301 all over again, but they break it up over 12 months. So when you do the math, $301 divided by 12 months, it's $25.08 per month. So that's the residual that you begin to receive for every active client that you have on your book of business every month. As long as they're active and on your book of business, you're going to continue to receive $25.08 every single month.
Yeah, so if you do the math, and of course some things have changed, like the commissions have gone up through the years, but kind of imagining the final expense agent sale, we know that now have 1,000 people in their book of business. The math on that was $25,000 a month. What is that per year?
$300,000.
$300,000, and that's just for waking up in the morning. That's just the renewals. And so, I know that kind of thinking is if you're a sales agent, it's very difficult to take a vacation, right? When you do final expense sales, or really most kinds of sales without residual income attached to it, there is this time period where the week before you go on vacation, you don't really want to be doing too much. You don't want to be doing too much because you know that you're going to be off the next week. So you're just trying to fit in what you can. So you're not doing a lot of your call-in leads and things like that. And then you have the week or two that you're on vacation, and then really the week to play catch up. You're missing out on a month of production for taking a week or two of vacation. It makes it hard. But when you're in this world, you don't have to worry about that, because you're going to get those renewals regardless. And so that's why I'm in the Medicare business, to be real honest, is those renewals. It's you get to help seniors, which are a population that's so important to us. But then, in addition to helping seniors, you get to make a pretty good living, and it's residual. So we know a lot of agents that just kind of handle referrals. They're not out marketing anymore. They're not dialing leads. They're not doing those things because they're just enjoying the referrals that they get. Maybe get 10 or 15 sales a month just off of referrals or relationships that they've already created. And so they've kind of got their foot off the gas. They're in cruise control and just going through it. So that's why we recommend doing Medicare. And it's, if you're doing final expense, trust me, it's worth it. Every time I talk to a final expense agent, they've obviously talked to someone already who has told them, it's a lot. There's a lot of compliance. There's a lot of certifications and things like that. So we're just going to kind of go through some of the steps real quick. First is making sure that you have the right license. And every state is different. So I'll say that. We live in Texas, so we know the Texas license. There's some final expense agents who maybe just have a life insurance license. It says life only on it. And so obviously you cannot do Medicare Advantage plans if you're life only. Right.
Right. The license that you're looking for, the one you want to have, is a life and health license.
Right.
So you got to make sure you have the right one. Just make sure that first and foremost, right? Before that's step number one.
Right. Yeah. And so just make sure that you do that. If not, it's not that hard to get. There's a test that you have to take. I would, connect with a Kaplan or something like that. Go through, make sure that you know the content, and then take that test. And step 2 would be find a good upline and find a good FMO. And if you work in final expense, you know what an FMO is. You use probably the term IMO, and so find a good upline. And a couple things to look for is, one of the most important pieces to me is finding one that has an all-in-one enrollment platform where you can enroll regardless of the carrier. You can enroll them all on this platform, and I think that would, to me, be a deal breaker if they didn't have something like that.
It's a big deal because if you're writing final expense and you have contracts with multiple carriers, if you decide that you're going to write with carrier A, you have to know how to go to their enrollment platform and sign somebody up. But then if you decide it's going to be a different carrier that you're going to write, then you have to become familiar with their enrollment platform, and you've got to do that with all the carriers that you represent. But with Medicare, it simplifies things if you have a platform, and that's what you're talking about, right? The all-in-one platform where the enrollment process is exactly the same regardless of which carrier that you're writing. It just kind of simplifies the entire process for the agent.
Yeah, so you got to have that, and you got to have it's 2023. Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, 2023, and there's so many things that are electronic, and you've got to have those options. If you're still pushing paper, it's just doesn't make sense.
It's a thing of the past.
Yeah,
really
yeah.
is.
Or even worse, going to every carrier and trying to use their enrollment platform and learning 7 different enrollment platforms. Just make it an all-in-one. And next thing would be find someone that's going to make sure that they're going to give you the training. So if you come from final expense world, I know a lot of it is self-study, just kind of so we at one time connected with one of the really large IMOs, and we were kind of interested in maybe how they worked, and we were looking at it. And if you were a new final expense agent, they just kind of said, all right, get out there, make it happen. And that's not what you do in Medicare. Please don't get out there and make it happen. You got to learn. There's a little bit more learning that is involved. You've got to know what you're doing. So you want to make sure that you find an upline that is going to give you training. They're gonna go through and sit down with you, teach you about Medicare, and teach you about the compliance rules also, right?
Yeah, if you're going to get out there and be selling Medicare plans, you've got to know first, what is Medicare? What is Medicare Advantage? What is Medicare Supplement? And knowing how to explain to your members what their different options are. Right. You want to be able to know that information. So make sure that you find the right partner. So we talk about upline, really look at it as a partnership. And so make sure that you find the right partner that's going to teach you and train you on how Medicare works, so that when you get out there, you actually know how to talk about these things, you know how to have these conversations.
Yeah, another thing I would think about with that would be making sure that they don't only represent one carrier. I'd be like, hey man, how's your relationship with the other carriers? I see that you're doing great with United, but how are you doing with the others? How are you doing with Humana? Do you do strong production for them? You want to find someone that has relationships everywhere. You don't want to just be stuck with one carrier. Another one is make sure that they're going to help you put a strategy together. That they are really, I guess, that they have an interest in your success, that their minds are focused on your success. I would put that as a big part of it, because if you can tell when you talk to people, like if they're looking for their sales or for yours, right? And so you want to make sure that you get somebody that is putting you at top in your needs, and their goal is to help you to be successful. So you have another thought to that?
No, I mean, you putting together the right strategy. So once you're trained, once you know what Medicare is, once you know Medicare Advantage, what's next? And so you've got to put a strategy together. So that being said, having the right partner in place that has your interest in mind, that's a huge deal. You don't just want somebody who's just going to give you that contract and then just say, all right, get out there and go get it, right? Someone who's going to actually help you put a plan together and implement that plan. Yeah.
The next one is probably most people's least favorite one. If we had that one of those sounds where it'd be like dun dun dun, like it's completing certifications. It's for a lot of people, it's just time consuming. I think that's the one of the biggest things. And so I want to be open and honest here. If you're a final expense agent, I've struggled. I have a friend I'm trying to help right now in transition over, but it's difficult. It's an investment, and that's why we talk about what the value is before we start talking about certifications, because it is hard. Certifications are, I wouldn't say it's hard. I would say that they're just time consuming.
It's tedious.
Yeah, and it's hard to take that much time away from working. We just talked about how difficult it is as a final expense agent to take time away from work. You've got to be out there and drumming up business, right? But I would look at this, maybe even take it as some vacation time. Like, I've got to do this because of what the future is, and just believing. It's this thing, right, where I've invested in a company that's doing horribly, and every time they do worse, I just keep putting money in. But it's an investment. I believe in kind of what they're doing. I believe that they're going to at some point make a comeback, and not just a comeback, but they're going to do better than they ever did. So with that belief, I am I'm continuing to invest in them, and I'm not doing it. Let this be an investment. Your certifications, let it be an investment in your future, and really taking it easy 3 years from now and being like, oh man, I don't have to worry about, now I have time. And so I would say that it's that you have AHIP that you do, and you get 3 times to pass that. And if you fail it 3 times, they let you buy it again, right? They didn't used to do that. It used to be like 3 strikes and you're out. Yeah, but now they do. So you've got AHIP. It's not mandatory for all carriers, but for me, I because we recommend working with several carriers, I would just do that, right?
Consider it mandatory if you plan on being an independent broker and representing multiple carriers.
I would, just because it makes it easier to do the other certifications. If you're just doing the AHIP, it gives you credit for United, it gives you credit for the different carriers. So next one would be understanding Medicare Advantage plan details. So we talked earlier about how it's important to find an upline that is going to help you with that, but you have some responsibility in that as well. And what I mean is that I would learn how to look up the evidence of coverage, and looking how to go deeper and finding answers. So I knew an agent, and she's one of our best agents through the years. She just is a wealth of knowledge. What she would do is, she had less experience than a lot of our agents, but I started noticing that she'd answer questions for people. But what she was doing is, on her free time, she was learning about Medicare, learning about how the plans work. And so the way that she would do that, one, you can obviously watch YouTube videos, right? That's what we're here for today, is to help people to learn and to grow. But she would do that. She would look through the evidence of coverage. She would spend time figuring out how the plans work, maybe call customer service and do that. She was doing it on her own time, like kind of spare time that she was doing it. And she became probably one of the most knowledgeable people that we have, because she spent that time learning. And so with less experience, she's just that type of person that was like, I'm going to figure this all out. And now is one of the people that answers questions, and she's got her own team that she's grown because of that. Obviously, people trust somebody who just knows their stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a key factor, because there are so many different options out there, and it's overwhelming to the senior. But as an agent, you can learn to understand how these plans work. And you've got your HMO plans, you've got your PPO plans, you've got networks. You've got to find out, do doctors take these particular plans? Are my medications covered? You want to be able to understand how to break these things down and how to do this type of research, so that, again, when you're out there having these conversations with people, you're actually able to let them know what their options are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is hard to learn, but once you do, it makes it all worth it for you. And so again, I would learn more about Medicare Advantage. And then step 5, is obviously the most important one, right? So we said you want to have an upline that's going to help you come up with a marketing strategy and things like that, but you've got to also be able to market yourself. So we'll talk a little bit about marketing yourself in this. First thing, if I'm a final expense agent and I have any kind of book of business, I'm gonna call and see if my upline will help me pay for a mailer that lets them know, hey, I'm doing final expense now. I'm doing Medicare now. And the reason is because there's so much value in that, just getting it to your own book of business. That's step 1. Can you guys help me pay for a mailer? So make the ask, because if you have a book of business, they know you. Get your face on a postcard, send it out to them, or get it even better, do a handwritten letter, and where you write, you can write in your own writing on the envelope, and then get that out to them, just a flyer. By the way, I'm doing Medicare now. That would go a really long way to help you kind of get a leg up. So
one thing that may come up, or one common question that we get is, I thought we're not allowed to call people. In Medicare. Is that true? How does that work? If I'm a final expense agent and I have this book of business, I thought I couldn't do that. Right. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, you can absolutely call, because they're your own client. So the distinction here is, if they're not your client, maybe it was just a lead that never closed, then you can't call them. But if you are talking to somebody who is your own client, you can call and check in and say, by the way, guess what? Now I do Medicare Advantage. So spend some time dialing. And what you would do is, during those phone calls, so after that mailer goes out, I'm talking about anyone who didn't call you, I'm going to be calling them up and doing that dialing. Even if you're running from appointment to appointment, start dialing those Medicare Advantage or dialing your final expense clients. Tell them, hey, just want you to know I do Medicare Advantage now. I would love to come and just set up a review and go over and make sure that you're in the right plan for you. The majority of your final expense clients are probably on Medicare, right? Or on their way to Medicare.
Mm-hmm. And it helps, it's going to lead to retention. We've had some agents who have joined us, again, doing final expense, and they transition to doing Medicare. And of course, they don't do as much final expense as they used to. But one of the big things that they saw, and really, it wasn't something that we intended to happen, but it just happened. And the feedback we were getting was, hey, my retention for my final expense is much higher now, simply because now I'm actually enrolling them with Medicare Advantage, right? So it's like this, you've got multiple lines of business with these clients. You've got them for final expense and Medicare Advantage. They're less likely to cancel that final expense policy. That retention is going to be higher, less chargebacks. And so it's just kind of it's a win all around for the agent, but also it gives you the opportunity to put your client, your member, in a better place.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to the final expense leads. Obviously, if you've done final expense for any amount of time, obviously you know that there's people who you call these leads, and then they'll sign up and then kind of go away. If you cross-sell your Medicare Advantage client, now you can't do that same day, got to come back. But if you cross-sell your Medicare Advantage client into final expense, that one, it's a different kind of lead. It's a different person. It's not a cold prospect that kind of makes a quick decision on emotion, and then you end up not getting, they end up going away immediately. It's a different client that you have when they come from final expense, and when they know that they actually need it, and you have these kind of conversations. So just overall, it kind of changes your clientele. But kind of going back to working your current book of business, I want to clarify, I don't want to convince final expense agents to stop selling final expense. It just happens to be that everyone that we've ever worked with who's done final expense, when they transition into Medicare, they end up preferring this world. So one of our top agents, she always says that the difference between the way that people treated her when they knew that she was coming to talk about Medicare. She's like, they actually want to talk to you. Like, and everybody, if you do final expense and you've had to do those leads, you know it's a grind. Yeah. It's hard. But when you talk to them about, hey, you just want to make sure that your healthcare benefits are going well. Now, why do they treat you different? Well, one, healthcare is important, but two, you're selling a zero premium product usually to a lot of the people, to that clientele. It's just, it feels less like sales to those people. So they're going to treat you nicer as well. But one thing I would do, and the reason I clarified, we're not trying to convince people to stop doing final expense. We want you to continue to do final expense. And so the great part is that you go and you do a final expense sell. And I would immediately say at the end of the final expense sell, here's what I would love to do. If it's okay with you, I also do Medicare. Can I come back in 2 days? I'll come back on Tuesday and we can have a conversation and I can make sure that you're on the right plan for you. There's a lot of options out there now. And usually they're going to be like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, come on over. I'll be here. And so that is probably the easiest way to. And then now the thing is you get your final expense sell right, and I don't even know what the average commission is. Let's say you get $1,000 commission when you sell final expense. Well, then you enroll someone in a Medicare plan, and now you got an extra $300 for life. As long as they stay on the plan, you've got an extra $300 a year from that client. So it's basically turning that one lead and getting you a bigger return value in that.
Oh yeah.
So as far as marketing goes, I would do that. If you keep up with this channel at all, we have a lot of recommendations that we tell agents to do. Get out there, market yourself, get in front of doctors, get in front of dentists, and of course, follow this channel. We're going to give you a lot more hints and tips on how we've seen agents, and we have a lot of very successful agents that we work with, how we've seen them and how we've kind of coached them and helped them to be successful in this business. So in conclusion, I want to just encourage everybody, take the chance. You can make it happen. I think that so many agents, they feel like they are wasting their time, and they feel like they're wasting their time, and they're saying, I just don't have time for that. I just don't have time for it. Make the time, and it'll be worth your while. Like when you imagine the days that you don't have to stress about, I'm not working. You don't have to miss out. Like I knew an agent he's working 7 days a week. Like you don't have to do that. Life doesn't have to be that much of a grind. Right. You can have some, when you build up, you have some time to take your foot off the gas, enjoy life a little, enjoy your family, enjoy the time with what's most important.
Yeah, I'd say, I just want to echo that. Make the investment. A lot of times, and then I'll share a story. We have an agent who joined us about 2.5 years ago, but for about a year, he was very hesitant to do Medicare. He was just doing final expense. And his mindset, the way he looked at things was, I don't have the time to do all these certifications. I don't have the time to take that AHIP. I don't have the time to certify with every single company that I want to represent if I want to be a broker. Because the time that I'm spending certifying, it's time that I could be out there making money. And that's, I would encourage, I discourage that mindset, and you've got to look at it as an investment. And he finally did, because it just so happened that fall during the Medicare open enrollment, he was running life insurance leads, and everyone thought that he was there for Medicare. And so he was referring all that Medicare business to us. And I finally said, hey, why don't you just do this stuff yourself? Why don't you just write it yourself? So finally he decided to pull the trigger, and he moved forward, and now he's transitioned to full-time Medicare. He still does some life insurance and final expense, but he's full-time Medicare, and he absolutely loves it, because he's not working 7 days a week the way that he used to. And now if he wants it, because I know usually if you're not able to get a hold of your leads and final expense during the week, they're door knocking on Saturdays and Sundays. And so now he doesn't have to do that. He's got time to be with his family on the weekends, and he loves it. He loves the fact that he finally made that jump, and he regrets that he waited so long to do it.
Yeah. It's funny when I talk to agents, I'm kind of like, hey man, I'm so glad that you made this decision, that you started working with us, that you're doing this. And do you have any regrets? When, here you are 2 years later, you've been doing Medicare. Do you have any regrets for doing that? And the response is usually, I only wish I would have started sooner. And so I just encourage you that if you're an agent and you are wanting to sell, don't hesitate anymore. Get out there, do the hard work. I know it's hard work. Get that investment done. So we want to thank you so much for tuning in. You are, we're really hoping to help and change, help people understand Medicare is a great business to be in. And we'd love to see more agents out there working hard and making things happen. So thanks, guys.